I'm doing a crappy job talking about this book. But I am intrigued So I loved, because it's the holiday season, I'm also drinking eggnog, and despite the fact that I am mumbling and stuttering my words, I swear to God, it's like straight up eggnog. There's no hooch happening in here. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. Today's video is going to be a whole lot of chit chat about a whole lot of books that I don't know a lot about that are coming out in 2020. But whether it is the author, whether it is the concept, whether it is part of a series and I'm excited to like pick it up, there is something about all of these books that is just screaming out to me. So I am going to attempt to be a little more methodical this year about how I do this. So this is going to be the books that are coming out in January, February, and March, and I'm going to attempt to be one of those people who actually gives quarterly updates of books that are coming out, sort of in advance of them coming out. But obviously this is posting in January and some of these are coming out in January, but bear with me. Planning ahead is like a new concept to me. So like I said, I don't know a lot about these books, but there is something to each of them that has me curious. So let's just talk about the books that are coming out that I don't know a lot about that I'm excited to read. Okay, January, a bunch of books. The first one, which I actually won an ARC of on Goodreads because people really win these things, is The Other People by CJ Tudor. And she wrote The Chalk Man, which I read back in 2019 and I loved it. And I have a hiding place. I haven't read it yet, but I basically am down for anything that she puts out. And the ARC being the ARC, it doesn't say anything about what this is about, but I have it. And this comes out end of January, and I am expecting atmospheric, I am expecting mystery, a little bit twisted, some darkness. So there's a couple questions at the beginning of this ARC that came out, and it says, "Why are you called the other people?" And she said, "We are people just like you, people to whom terrible things have happened. We found solace not in forgiveness or forgetting, but in helping each other find justice." Driving home one night, stuck behind a rusty old car, Gabe sees a little girl's face appear in the rear window. She mouths one word, "Daddy." It's his 5-year-old daughter, Izzy. He never sees her again. 3 years later, Gabe spends his days and nights driving up and down the highway searching for his daughter, refusing to give up hope, even though most people believe she is dead. When the car Gabe saw that night is found abandoned in a lake with a body inside, Gabe must confront not just the day Izzy disappeared, but painful events from his past, now dredged to the surface. So I'm super excited. I think she's a great writer. I'm excited to see what she has in store for us with this book, and definitely one I'm going to be reading at the top of 2020. Maureen Johnson's new book, I'm looking down, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be looking down a little bit as I read the titles of these things. The Hand on the Wall, which is the third book in the Truly Devious series. And I picked up Truly Devious in October, and I loved it. And I read the sequel to Vanishing Stair in November. It's another one of these books where we have dual timelines. We have a mystery in the past that begins in Truly Devious in the 30s with a headmaster of this elite school up in Vermont, and his wife and daughter are kidnapped, and he winds up getting this like ransom note cutout letters in the vein of Dorothy Parker, and it's signed Truly Devious, and that mystery was never solved. And then in the present day we have a girl named Stevie who is obsessed with that case amongst a whole bunch of other murders. Like, she's just like a diehard murder, true crime, my kind of gal. And she winds up getting into Ellingham, which she is obsessed with getting into for the sole purpose of being where the Truly Devious case was, and her commitment is to solving the case. So off we go on a ride with her. Again, we have those dual timelines going on. There's a very interesting cast of characters. Of course, some bad stuff goes down in the present day, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was smart, funny, clever. Loved the characters, loved the complications of it. Just really, really enjoyed both of those books. And I am very curious to see how the series wraps up. before I read The Vanishing Stair, I had heard some people kind of like poo-pooing the book, that they didn't like it as much as Truly Devious, but I actually really enjoyed it. I think Truly Devious was the better of the two, and I think part of that is like it's the first. Like, in my opinion, Star Wars is still the best because it was the original, but I thought The Vanishing Stair stood up. I liked new characters that were introduced. I liked the evolution of the story, so I am really excited to see what happens in book 3, which is the conclusion, so you know that means in a trilogy all bets are off. Now we're going to get into a couple random books that I came across in my mad search for what was coming out next year. And the first one is called The Truants by Kate Weinberg, and this is basically what got me. It says, perfect for lovers of Agatha Christie and The Secret History. Love them both. I am somebody who loved Secret History. That is a book that I know is not for everyone. I swear on every book that I own, I am going to read If We Were Villains this year, which is also supposed to be like The Secret History. And let's say I will read If We Were Villains before I even dare pick up The Truants. So there's a little motivation for me to get that book read. But the synopsis on this one is this girl Jess comes to college campus for one reason, to be taught by the mesmerizing and rebellious Dr. Lorna Clay, whose seminars soon transform Jess's thinking on life, love, and Agatha Christie. Swept up in Lorna's thrall, Jess falls in with a tightly knit group of rule breakers. Alec, a courageous South African journalist with a nihilistic streak, Georgie, a seductive pill-popping aristocrat, and Nick, a handsome geologist with layers of his own. But the dynamic between the friends begins to darken. Magic word. Until a tragedy shatters their friendship and love affairs and reveals a terrible secret. Soon Jess must face the question she fears most. What is the true cost of an extraordinary life? So it does sound super Secret History-ish. I love it. I've never heard of this author before. This comes out the end of January. I am going to read it. The next book is called Mr. Nobody, and this is by Catherine Steadman. And this is psychological thriller. I know, it's going to be a lot of thrillers, you guys, sorry. And it says, Memento meets Sharp Objects. Now, I haven't seen Memento, but I love Sharp Objects. Book is right on point, and the HBO miniseries was terrific. This tree is going to get me. So this is a man found on a British beach, drifting in and out of consciousness with no identification and unable to speak. An interest in him is sparked immediately. So we've got the hospital staff, people are baffled by him. The national press is like, does anyone know who this guy is? Because he doesn't know who he is. Everybody wants answered, who is he? What happened to him? Why did he wind up on that beach? And we sort of enter Dr. Emma Lewis, who is a neuropsychiatrist. And this is kind of giving me Silent Patient vibes. So she is asked to assess this patient in the town. It's her expertise. In she comes. She knows that she can make a name for herself with this case because there's tons of publicity around it. But of course, here comes the danger factor. The small town that Emma has to come to is the same small town that she left 14 years ago and has tried to leave very far in her rear view. So it says, now something or someone is calling her back. And the more time she spends with her patient, the more alarmed she becomes that he knows the one thing about her that nobody is supposed to know. It says, places aren't haunted, people are. So this is, again, feels like a little Silent Patient to me in the sense that although he, Theo in that book chooses to get involved with Alicia, who shot her husband and won't talk about it. So it's a little bit different in that sense, but then, you know, we've got like a little bit, some mystery going on between them, patient, therapist. So I don't know. It sounds intriguing. It also reminds me slightly of Lisa Jewell's I Found You, where a guy is on the beach, doesn't know how he got there, doesn't know who he is, and a woman who lives there with her children winds up taking him in, and there's like some multiple mysteries going on in the background of that book that all intertwined. So kind of reeks of both of those a little bit to me, which is what makes me want to read it. The next book is One of Us is Next, which is by Karen McManus, and this is the sequel to One of Us is Lying. And I read One of Us is Lying in 2018, and it was a book that I liked but didn't love, and part of it was my expectations. I felt this book was not pitched correctly, so my expectations were totally in the wrong place, because it was very much pitched as The Breakfast Club with sort of, you know, the jock, the brain, the criminal, the basket case, the homecoming queen, all in detention for different reasons. They all have kind of beefs with each other, and one of them doesn't make it out of detention alive, which I thought was an incredible concept. The issue I had with the book is that incredible concept is chapter 1, and the book is actually like goes way beyond that to figure out what happened. So I liked it, like I finished it, I enjoyed it enough to finish it. I just wanted it to be something different. So I did pick up Two Can Keep a Secret. Yes, that's what it's called, which I haven't read yet, which is another Karen McManus, which has nothing to do with this book, but this is the sequel to One of Us is Lying. I want to say the main character is the younger sister of one of the main characters from the original book, and then I think some of those original players come into play here. So I'm antenna up curious, but not like running out to read it curious. So I'm gonna kind of hang back and see, but it is on my radar. I know it's a big book for a lot of people, so I wanted to mention it here. So I'm a little bit curious about it, and we'll see, but it's getting some good reviews, so I think there's some nice potential there. And the last book coming out in January that I have on my list is writer-centric, and it is called Before and After the Book Deal, A Writer's Guide to Finishing, Publishing, Promoting, and Surviving Your First Book by Courtney Mom. And as an aspiring writer who is working to finish yet another book, this obviously completely grabbed my attention. So it really is, this one is all for the writers out there in the world. Everything you wanted to know about publishing but were afraid to ask. It says it's a funny, candid guide. There's tons of contributors from all walks of the industry. Kind of talks you through anecdotes about the most taboo subjects in the industry, wisdom, how to keep your sanity, how to navigate the challenges, hopefully of life after you get your book published, as well as before. So super curious about this one. I have so many books about writing that I need to read before this happens, but I feel like when I am kind of probably like draft finish, ready to query, this might be a book that I'll pick up for some tips and tricks. So I'm going to exert a little bit of self-control and not snag it right away, but it is on my radar for when the time comes. Okay, so we are cruising into February, and the first book is Dead to Her by Sarah Pinborough. And I have not read any Sarah Pinborough, even though she's sitting on my shelf, but I want to. This one sounds interesting. So I know, I'm like, whatever. I know. That should be my rule, actually. Before I pick up any of these books by an author that I already have one of their books on my shelf, I need to read their book that I have on my shelf. That's a good challenge to make for myself. So that can hold me somewhat accountable too. So this is twisty psychological thriller about a savvy second wife who will do almost anything to come out on top. So it says, marriage can be murder, something old. Marcy's affair with Jason Maddox catapulted her into the world of the elite. Old money, old ties, old secrets. Marcy may have married into this world, but she'll never be a part of it. Something new. Then Jason's boss, I lost my place. Then Jason's boss brings back a new wife from his trip to London. Young, attractive, reckless. Nobody can take their eyes off Keisha, including Marcy's husband. Some people would kill for the life Marcy has. What will she do to keep it? So, just sounds interesting to me. Sounds intriguing. Harlan Coben plugged it. There's lots of like nice little reviews. Yeah, illicit love affairs, tension. Pinborough plants her flag as the master of seductively sinister suspense. Say that 10 times fast. So on my list, on my radar, I should read Behind Her Eyes before I'm allowed to pick up this book. The next book is called The Other Misses by Mary Kubica, and this one sounds super intriguing to me. And I have read a bunch of Mary Kubica books. I want to say I have one left on my shelf from her. And this is Sadie and Will have only just moved their family from bustling Chicago to small town Maine when their neighbor Morgan Baines is found dead in her home. The murder rocks their tiny coastal island, but no one is more shaken than Sadie. But it's not just Morgan's death that has Sadie on edge. And as the eyes of suspicion turn towards the new family in town, Sadie is drawn deeper into the mystery of what really happened that dark and deadly night. But Sadie must be careful, for the more she discovers about Mrs. Baines, the more she begins to realize just how much she has to lose if the truth ever comes to light. So I love this, like moving into the new town. I don't know if they're trying to escape something in Chicago. New people in town, neighbor gets murdered, all eyes are on the new people, and obviously there's some secrets and things in their past that they want to try and keep hidden. So I'm really interested in this. I enjoyed The Good Girl. I enjoyed Pretty Baby. I didn't love Every Last Lie, which I read last year, and then I have Don't You Cry still on my shelf. So as a whole, I really enjoy Mary Kubica's writing. I like her mysteries. She's got some dark, twisted characters. She has kind of like everyday people thrown into not everyday circumstances and kind of forces people to maybe do things you normally wouldn't. But I like her as an author. I'm really curious about this one. I'm sort of getting into this like small town vibe thing, you know, like you start to hit a groove on certain things. So I'm super curious about this one. The next book is by Christina McDonald, who wrote The Night Olivia Fell, and this one is called Behind Every Lie. And I enjoyed The Night Olivia Fell. It wasn't like the best mystery I read, and I would say it was more of like a slower burn in some ways, but I enjoyed it. It's funny, I was just chatting with someone in my comments about it, and they were saying how the book just made them like really sad for Olivia and her circumstances, and I totally agree. It was sort of like a gut-wrenchingly sad story in a lot of ways, but I enjoyed it enough to be interested in what else Christina McDonald is writing. And this book is about a woman named Eva. So she wakes up in the hospital, she was struck by lightning, and she discovers that her mom is dead and has actually been murdered. And Eva doesn't know what happened, she doesn't remember, and everyone is very suspicious of her, including the police, because she claims she can't remember anything from the night her mom was murdered. So she basically goes on a mission to find out what happened. It says it takes her from Seattle to London. She is unraveling her mom's secrets, and then she soon realizes that somebody doesn't want her to find out the truth. And then sort of the tagline on this one is, if you can't remember it, how do you prove you didn't do it? So I kind of love these, you know, you're out to prove your innocence. It's sort of like the Mary Kubica one, where like everybody's looking at the people in town as the new murderers, so everybody's looking at Eva as the one who murdered her mom, so it's all about clearing your good name. The next book I am so excited about, and I didn't even know this was happening. I didn't even know she had a new book coming out, and it's called Grownups by Marian Keyes. And you guys know that I love her. I've talked about her on here ad nauseum. I 100% need to read The Break. It's right there. And I need to read it before I pick up this book. And this is about a glamorous family, the Caseys. And it says, Johnny Casey, his two brothers Ed and Liam, and their beautiful talented wives, and all their kids spend a lot of time together. Birthday parties, anniversary celebrations, weekends away. And they're a happy family. Johnny's wife, Jessie, who has the most money, insists on it. Under the surface, though, conditions are murkier. While some people clash, other people like each other far too much. Everything stays under control until Ed's wife, Kara, gets a concussion and can't keep her thoughts to herself. One careless remark at Johnny's birthday party, with the entire family present, starts Kara spilling out all of their secrets. In the subsequent unraveling, every one of the adults finds himself wondering if it's time, finally, to grow up. So I love Marian Keyes as an author, and I embarrassingly have not read her in a long time, and I was planning to reread Lucy Sullivan is Getting Married as part of my 2019 reread project, and I didn't get to it because I'm a bad human being and I read other books instead. But she is one of those authors who, when I discovered her, like in my 20s, just hit so close to home in so many ways. I related to her on so many different levels. I related to her characters. She writes what could be on the surface level light contemporary stories about relationships and family and marriage and divorce, but there is also sort of this very underlying complex narrative to all of her books. And there is darkness, and there is stories about addiction and death and suicide and depression and alcoholism and sort of the darker, grittier sides of relationships in a lot of ways. Yet she still manages to have great wit and humor and levity in a lot of her books. So I think she is underrated. I don't hear people talk about her enough at all. And as I sit here and read about the fact that she has a new book coming out, I need to read something old before I get something new. But I'm so excited that she's got a new book. I just think she's absolutely delightful, and I love her writing, and I could not be happier to find out that she's got a book coming out in 2020. So that is a whole bunch of books that I'm excited about that are coming out the first 3 months of the year. I'm sure there's so many more that I missed. Please let me know what they are, and we will see how it goes. As a whole, I am not someone who pre-orders books. The only book I have pre-ordered in recent years was The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. So I am definitely going to try to pump the brakes a little bit on knee-jerking and buying books immediately and then just popping them on the shelf. So I would like to hopefully discover some of these through my library. Again, I love the idea of reading what I have before I'm allowed to pick up something new by some of these authors and just taking it from there. So we will see how it goes. I talked about this in another video of mine. I do a no-spend January every year, so I can't buy anything. So as much as I want to read the third book in the Truly Devious series, I'm just gonna have to at least wait till February 1st to be able to do that. So thank goodness I have this book so I can read it. But let me know what you guys are looking forward to in 2020. I will update this as I hear about new things that are coming out, and we can all just chat about what we're excited about down below. So thank you guys for watching today. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you really soon in my next video. Bye everybody.